Hey, welcome to the studio. This is my day of play, where you're taken into real events and actions as it happens, long before the process of editing or cleaning up. This is how it really went. Today, I spent time with Anna Sigga Nicolazzi from the podcast version of Law and Order. You can find it on iHeartRadio. Then we got into a serious conversation as well as a compassionate conversation with Tik Toks Suzi Loftus. This is my day of play, completely unedited in the way of meeting the wizard behind the curtain. Hello and good morning.
Arrow, I got to give you a heads up. I don't have talent for this TikTok yet. We're waiting on her. So can I temporarily move you to the 9:53 slot? Do you already have something?
Yeah, I'm booked from 9:50 to 10:10.
10:10. Okay, let me look at my schedule. 10:10. How about 10:45?
All right, we'll do 10:45.
All right, perfect. I'm going to put you there for now. We'll talk to you then if we have her.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Recording in progress.
Michael, how are you?
Doing good, Arrow. Anna is on a phone. Her Zoom has been giving us issues. The thing is, I could probably feed her microphone to you, but then you might hear yourself twice. So,
Do you want to just give me a buzz?
Well, no.
Oh, okay.
I figure we'll just record it this way. You'll sound better, and you'll have till 10:10 with her. So
Excellent. Good morning, Anna. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited to share a conversation with you because who would have ever thought Law and Order in podcast form would actually be something so just, I can't put it away because I'm so drawn to it because you're inside my imagination.
Well, thank you, because that's what we were hoping for. And I think that's where the idea came from, is that for the same reasons people have been watching the different series for decades, well, why not get into this newest medium, which is you can take it in your car or on the run or wherever you're going and put the picture in your mind, as you just said.
What I love about it is that you take your time in sharing this story. Each little soundbite leads to something else. There's so much forward motion going on here.
And I think you really need that. Unless you get to those details, you're missing half of the story. You know, it's not just what you read in the headlines. This is the nitty gritty, if you will, which sometimes makes and breaks cases. And if without understanding that, we don't want to get too in the weeds, but those are sometimes the most fun parts to hear and important parts to talk about.
Are you inside the studio actually putting this together? Because, I mean, it would be so exciting to get these sound bites and figure out how you're going to write things around it so that you can bring it together.
Yeah, we have really, it is really a team mentality, both from Wolf Entertainment and iHeart Podcast, the players that they have given us, the talent, and myself. It is, I do every interview. We are all together and we're talking about what each episode is going to look like. When I tell you every single person has eyes on these episodes, or I should say ears, since it is audio, and just listening and refining and trying to make sure that we are being as true to the story as possible, and also making sure that it is compelling for our audience.
Well, you can absolutely tell that you break down each case. It's taken down just to the integral parts too, and it really it makes me feel like I'm sitting right there with you guys as you're bringing it together.
I cannot tell you that is the best thing that you could have said, because when we look at the hours we put into it, to hear that we have achieved that through what you just said, well, that is definitely very important to us. And I certainly think it makes it all the more worthy to all the men and women that have given us their time to be part of the series.
Let's get real here, because you brought up the hours it takes. A lot of listeners do not understand what it is that we put into these processes in order to make these podcasts work. The hours that are involved. How do you stay motivated?
You think about the end product. For me, it is, I care about the cases. I come from the law enforcement background. I was a prosecutor for 21 years, homicide for 17 of those. And so I really care about people understanding our system and what goes into the cases. And I think that plays itself forward in podcasting. As you point out, it's not just getting on the mic and speaking. And while some things are live and some things are taped, in general, it is really going through all the different steps to put the pieces together in a way that, nothing comes easy that is good, or rarely that happens to life. And I think a good podcast is a perfect example of that.
Look at what you're doing with season 1, 1979, New York City. I didn't know the story until I got into the story, and I'm going, oh my God, this goes deep into what's going on with the assassination of Carmine.
And that's the fun of it, me too. I was not a prosecutor in 1979, but it needed to come to life, first in the words of our guest, but that's where it started. And so that's where we brought you, and hopefully we bring you right into that time frame. New York City was a very different place than it is today. The mob really had that city in a stranglehold, and they used to call it the mob tax, because basically everything people were paying for, there was an upcharge, because the people that were providing those services had to pay that to the mob. And prosecutors had not been able to figure out how to tackle it until these cases, specifically the commission cases, we tackle in the middle of the series.
You know what's so odd about that, Anna, is that we always heard about it in movies and on TV shows where they had to pay a certain amount of money, but you really make it real. And now it's like, oh my God, this actually took place.
And so many people there knew it, and so many didn't. And certainly if we look at this today, unfortunately, we are living in different times, but to understand why it was so important to tackle this organization, because yes, Hollywood has become part of pop culture lore for many years, and we certainly can see why, but there is a destructiveness to the crimes being committed that most people don't really know.
Wow. Can you imagine being a journalist in 1979 in New York City, and you're told this is the case that you've got to cover? Because, we're talking organized crime here. How deep can you go as a journalist?
Oh my gosh. And I also think about, imagine being picked for that jury.
No.
I am the prosecutor that wants people to believe in our system and walk into court, but you also can understand the apprehension of this. It's fascinating. Your eyes grow wide because you want to know and you want to go behind the scenes, but is there risk? And I do think that the mob overall certainly had this unwritten code, at least, of staying away from law enforcement, staying away from prosecutors. But you've certainly heard those stories against the everyday citizen when they came in their paths, and it was something to be worried about.
How many of your writers have actually written books? And the reason why I bring that up is because you're not reporting on a story here, you're storytelling with listeners.
That's a really interesting question. Now you have put maybe the first thing to me that I don't know the answer to. And I certainly can think of one for sure, but I think that we have great storytellers, and
Yes.
what they've all been really good at is following the research, and every one of them has a good handle on understanding that this is real. It is not going to be, the picture they can paint in their mind and put to paper. It has to start with reality, and we need to stay true to those facts while we help it come to life through the medium of audio.
Man, to be with a team that really believes in research and fact-checking, a lot of listeners don't understand how exciting that is, because when you uncover something that is so important, it's a surge of electricity that moves through you.
It is, and you hear that in different episodes, what those pivotal moments were, and just the reaction. I'm talking to these men and women decades later, and you still hear the excitement in their voices when certain things happen throughout these investigations and trials that they didn't see coming, or that things that worked their way or didn't. And as you said, the current of energy that surges through them even today as they talk about it.
One of the things you talk about in season 1, the lawyers wanting to score a plea bargain. Do lawyers really, is that the first thing they're reaching for, or is it just a way to keep the, things to move forward?
I think it would depend which side you're talking about. And I don't think there's a bright line rule for any of it. Certainly as a prosecutor, it's certainly not what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about where should this case land. If a plea is appropriate, if it is the right amount of time or the right amount of accountability based on evidence that is fairly collected, then I have no problem with it. Sometimes, unfortunately, we have to make those tougher decisions because of the unknowns that can happen in a courtroom. It is a way to give the family some finality. by taking that. So there's a lot that goes into it. So I don't think it's ever a starting place, but it should be a natural ending place where appropriate.
In a very creative way, those of you who are putting together Law and Order for the podcast, aren't you, in a very creative way, undercover until it's shared with us?
I think so, and that's the fun of it, right? Yeah. Is that while we actually have undercover FBI agents as part of this series, for us, it's kind of keeping it under wraps because, really the biggest reason is to make sure that we have put the pieces together in a way that we think is true to the cases and those that have participated before it comes out to the world. And when I tell you sometimes it is the night before it is released, we are still making those last tweaks and those last checks because we really want to make sure we get it right.
When you put so much love and interest and compassion inside a podcast such as this, because there's so much going on in the background that it brings everything forward, is it one of those things like a musician where before you release it to the public, you have to go listen to it in the car? Are you guys listening to it before it goes, or is it trusted?
I think the question is how many times are we listening to it? I think every one of us is listening to it multiple times. And I will tell you that not only do we listen to it before, but once it's released, then I'll listen to it again because now it has the ads in it. And I know that I'm hearing it exactly as the audience is hearing it. And there is a difference to that. So I think it's a question of how many times.
Yeah, because when I'm listening to the podcast, I'm listening to it when I'm walking through the forest, and I'm a whole completely different person when I'm listening to the podcast in the car. I would love to hear from other people that, how it does. It affects whatever mode you're in and wherever you're moving.
It does. That's a great question. I would love to know that too, because like you said, if you're going to work, you're in a different mindset. If you're listening on the train or in a car versus if you are out for a walk with your dog, and does that change your experience?
Mm-hmm. Would you say that Law and Order has helped shape our current justice system by being so truthful?
I don't know if it has shaped it, but I think that it has been an incredible advocate for the system because it portrays it in a way that is as true to life as I've seen, and which is part of the reason why I've loved the show for many years before partnering with Wolf Entertainment. It's not a perfect system, but I believe in the system. And I think most men and women involved in it are doing their best job and doing it fairly. And when there's missteps, yes, they can be nefarious and we need to call those out immediately. But that's not the case that sometimes I think that is today portrayed. And I think that Law and Order has always captured that essence. They have shown people as multidimensional for the good and the bad. And when you fall, you have to pick yourself back up. But they've also shown respect for the system and those impacted by those crimes.
Well, your entire team puts the listener in a place of who, what, where, why, when, and how. We're constantly asking that. And then you deliver it, and it's almost like it feeds what we think we knew.
And I appreciate hearing that because you're supposed to be digging into all those places because that's what you do in these cases. When you are working these cases, which I have done for many years, I have to be able to answer those questions before I expect a jury to understand it. And so we view our audience the same way, is that we don't want someone to say, wait, they didn't answer this for me. We want to try to think out those questions in advance.
Can you imagine being in that car with that surveillance bug? I mean, it's once again, that seems so Hollywood, but it actually took place.
Many times, and it is just incredible. There is the adrenaline, but the fear factor. And when I tell you, when you hear some of these stories and the moments that you didn't know which way they were going to turn, it is electrifying.
Well, the whole idea of Carmine's assassination is what, because it's one of those things where it's like you draw such an amazing picture with the sound effects and the storylines of what was going on. But I was kind of taken back when I go, how did the police know that this was going to be a larger conspiracy? Because right away I'm thinking, oh, this is inside. It's got to be inside.
And I think that they got that, but they couldn't put together the evidence they needed. And, the thing about the commission case, which is the first case that really tackled the mob from the top down rather than just the players committing the individual crimes, is that when they looked at this case, they're like, you know what? No, a mob boss is not being executed without the approval of the other bosses of what is known as the five families in New York City. And when they began to view it that way and use the RICO statute, which had never been utilized, in this fashion before. They started to see the big picture, and that is when, in a very novel way, they thought outside the box to just amazing results.
We've all read the stories about the 5 families. We sit there in our own way and we put them up on the pedestal. And then, even when you're talking about the Cosa Nostra and things, it's like, oh my God, this isn't from the pages of a book. This is really how it's playing out. So I'm glad the fact that you guys put so much attention on the history of the families and then bringing the story out.
And that was really important. And I will say, the iHeart team that has really been integral in helping us put this together, the research was, as a prosecutor, I'm always looking at the details, and they pulled out things that I had yet to see or hear, which really makes the difference in being true to the story.
Hindsight, what have you learned from the past that you're using in your today?
Interesting. Couple things. Do what you love and put your all into it. And I think that is, and knowing that you never know as much as you think you know. It's important to know what you don't know as well. While I knew a lot of the pieces and I know how to ask the questions, there's plenty that I didn't know going into this. And I think you need to be open to that to put your best foot forward.
Are you guys prepared for season 35? Because you've got enough information and experience here to take this way beyond us.
35, 45 will be there. Right. There is so much to cover in the criminal justice system, and we certainly have put together a team that I'm very proud of, and I think that has the talent to do it.
One of the things that I love about listening to it on iHeartRadio is the way that iHeartRadio on the app, that shows the transcript. So while I'm sitting there, if I think I heard something, I'll grab that transcript in a heartbeat and read about it. I love the connection that they do that with this podcast.
It's a great feature, and I look at it as well because, again, I've read the transcripts and we're putting it together, but just like you, I want to sometimes see the words while I'm hearing them, and it just puts it in my head differently. And I think it's a fantastic feature because you can quickly look there, scan something, and process it in a different way than if it's just your ears alone.
What kind of rules does the law enforcement officer have to play by? We're talking about New York City, 1979, being run over by the mafia. It's like they had to make up their own rules as the game was being played.
But you have to be fair. And I think when you're not, it's eventually going to show itself, right? And I think that is when you start to see the downfall of things. So it is being open to innovation and things you haven't thought about. And the guy that pipes up from the corner, this idea that sounds really crazy, well, keep an open mind because that might be the very thing that leads you to the unattainable, that which you haven't gotten to before. And I think that's a really important thing that we saw here is they put their heads together. And when I say that this group of men and women, each one of them is so impressive in their own right, but they all want to make sure that we know that this was a team. Every single person played an important role, and it was only by using the skill set that all of them had that they achieved these milestones.
And listeners need to understand, these are authentic sounds. It's not actors playing out a role. And I think maybe that's the reason why I'm glued to this podcast.
Thank you. And coming from my world, that was such an exciting piece when I was able to or offered to team up with Wolf Entertainment and iHeart. And I was like, this is my world now going into the Law and Order franchise. And that was really just the fangirl moment for me and something very exciting because I do think that the life story, the true story is as exciting and in many ways even more so than what can be portrayed in fiction.
Anna, you got to come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
You say that now, but I may take it. So
okay, please do. Will you be brilliant today, okay?
Great, thank you. Same.
Thank you. Bye, Michael. Hey, don't move. We're going to be right back.
Hey, Arrow, this is the control room.
Hey, how you
I'll
guys?
be with you in just a second, okay?
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have Arrow say hello to you in just a moment.
Great. What's your name?
Dawn.
Hi, Dawn. Thank you. Thanks for saving me this morning.
No worries. All right, Arrow, we gotcha.
Hello and good morning, Susie. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm great. Happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm very excited to talk with you. And the reason why is because so many times TikTok has come across to me as being the little engine that could. I think I can. I think I can. I think it can. And you guys consistently prove to us that you love us, that you really want to take care of not only just your viewers, but their families and educate us on how to use a better TikTok.
That's right. I mean, TikTok is a joyful and entertaining place for half of America. So you got it right. Like, we're deeply committed to the people who find community, who love our platform, and we listen. So when parents and teens tell us that they have ideas on how to improve that relationship and support parents, we listen. And that's what we did here.
I speak with more authors as well as rock stars and other actors who use TikTok as a tool. It's such a valuable tool, and that's where viewers go. They go to these little TikTok videos, and that becomes a part of their culture.
That's right. It's a place for discovery and engagement. TikTok is a place where you find a book, that you've never thought of reading, and you don't have to walk into a bookstore. Somebody that you know or someone who does an amazing review opens up a whole new world to you. So TikTok is about discovering and connecting and really finding joy and creativity in your life.
I come from the generation where they always said, don't let your kids spend too much time in front of the TV. Well, okay, now we've got TikTok. What is the best time to be in front of TikTok?
So, I think that depends. The great thing about TikTok is it's very customizable. We are a community. So we have what we call community guidelines. And so that means that there's certain behavior that we expect. And we want our users, whether they're teens or adults, to know the rules. And then what we say is use the tools. So, for example, if you're under 18, you are automatically put into a default setting that you have a 60-minute time limit. But I often tell adults, depending on your day and what you're up to, you can use a tool too and set a time limit. You can say whether or not you'd like someone to be able to comment on your video. You can turn your account to private. So what we really value at TikTok is giving our users and our community the choice to set up the TikTok experience that's right for them.
And you're making it very interactive. I mean, I dig the idea of this thing called quizzes.
Right. So it's all about, safety information. I come from a background in public safety. So I spent 15 years in public safety as a prosecutor and a special assistant attorney general before I came to TikTok. And so what I realized is when you're talking about safety, you've got to find ways to make it relevant to people. We found that teens told us we want the safety information more involve us more, make it more interactive. So Quizzes helps us do that. It takes something that's, maybe regular information, but it gives it that TikTok bump and makes it a little bit more interesting. Now, fascinatingly, parents told us something a little different. They said, give us the safety information, simple and straightforward. So we've done that with our Guardian's Guide and really taken our safety tools and approach and made it accessible to each audience, depending on what they told us they needed.
You're going to think I'm a freak. My discipline is I get 15 minutes of TikTok, and it has to be at a certain time of the day, and otherwise I'll never get anything done. But not everybody works like that. They've got to be able to have that boundary line. Otherwise, they're going to be sitting there for hours.
That's right. I mean, I think it really depends on the kind of person you are. My kids, my teens are on TikTok. And I usually joke that if I send my teenager, my 17-year-old a TikTok, she'll say, well, Mom, I'd like to look at that, but my time limit is such that I really have to be very intentional about how I spend time on TikTok. So if you want to give me more time on TikTok, I can look at the videos you send me. So, I think everybody is different. But that's the whole idea of TikTok is we want the half of America who loves it to continue to be able to use it and customize it for what works for them.
One of the greatest things about TikTok is I love the fact that CNN and other national newsmakers are sitting there and they're using these videos to help, heighten their response to news and things. I love how they hook up and they pass things forward.
Well, TikTok is fueled by the creativity of our amazing creators. And so I think what we've unlocked are, again, people might not realize this, but the average age of our TikTok user is over 30. So we have parents, we have teachers, we have a STEM feed, science, technology, engineering, math, that anybody under 18 is automatically, put into by default setting. But that's where teachers are explaining things that we probably, how to solve for a linear equation. You cannot believe the amount of interesting, fascinating content that Americans and people all over the world are putting on TikTok. And yes, then it's getting used and passed around in places that are not always expected.
How important is the idea that we can block? I mean, I block people on Facebook all the time and even Twitter, but to do it on TikTok, it's like, wow, this is a great tool.
We have a number of tools. Again, we talk about, we have a community. So we have community guidelines, which are our rules. And then we have a number of safety features that allow you to customize your experience. And just as you said, everything from when it's teens, what's involving teens, we have specific default settings. We've really designed the product with safety in mind. And so we've looked at certain features. For example, if you're 13 to 15, your account is private by default.
Yeah.
By default, only your friends can comment on your videos. So we've really taken a holistic look at building safety into the design of TikTok for our teens. And we've also recognized that, we've taken some lessons from people being online for some time and have given people the tools that they've asked for, whether it's, keyword filtering, maybe depending on what's happening in your life, there's a certain subject matter that you don't want to see on your For You feed. You can, set that filter for yourself. You can, if you get a video, say, you know what, I'm not interested in that. We're heading into an election in, I think it's 60 days from today. And so, TikTok users might be getting more content from, someone running for office who's joined the platform. If they're not interested in that, they can just click the not interested button and really customize their experience. And I think that's part of harnessing the magic of TikTok is getting the experience that is exactly right for you.
I'm still convinced that the next great directors and producers in Hollywood are all going to come from the TikTok generation. Do you have tools that will help teach young adults how to better their videos, to make it more, storytelling like?
Well, I think what's really incredible is the power of young people using this platform to do just that, to create. I think one of the powerful things about TikTok is that we make creating very easy through the app and through the features that are available. So through the filters, through the templates, there are so many ways to get people into the game of creating and making it really simple and straightforward. And really what this generation is showing us is the sky is the limit in terms of when you bring that creativity to this platform, what you can build.
Now, when you talk about these new things that you're putting in order to protect families and individuals, I mean, I'm so used to using TikTok on my smartphone. That's it. I don't go to a computer for TikTok. So is it easy to find these things?
Yes, it's a great point. All of our safety features are available in the app. So when you go to your account, you can specifically change your settings. And moreover, this campaign is really about helping you understand how to do that. Yeah. So at our, TikTok Safety Center, part of the Guardian's Guide is really about explaining the features and simplifying and providing straightforward guidance on how you can use them. So you can go to TikTok.com. You can also go right into the app and look at your settings, change the settings, see what's available to you. We're doing everything we can to make it really accessible and easily available to our users.
You care about us. I love where your heart is. Please come back to this show anytime in the future, Suzi. The door is always going to be open for you.
Thank you. I'd be delighted to return. Thanks so much. And enjoy your time on TikTok.
Absolutely. You be brilliant today.
I will. Thank you.